drive over to Pearl Street. Jake's building
Pearl Street.
9 more units over there. It's, there's one street over.
Better late than never.
I said I meant to remind people yesterday that it was in person, and I forgot. Forgot to remind. This, this came in early this morning. It's a public comment via email.
Okay.
So I printed it out for everybody.
Good.
If you want to.
Excellent. Yes.
This is a public, an email public comment that came in this morning, so I just printed it for everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Company, I'm strung out. I've got too many people coming.
But your email doesn't go through. Do you have a new email?
Oh, different, she has a different email, yeah,
You have
than the
a
original one. You had one when you started, and now you have a different one.
Oh, I had Jim Brady.
Yeah,
Anyway.
So I'll check with you what's the right one, because
Yeah.
I tried to just contact you.
Before we start, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Kate Maldonado. I'm the new Assistant Director of Planning and Development.
Oh, nice.
Working under Elizabeth, and I do apologize. I have to step out at 9:30 for an additional meeting. So if you see me sneak out, I'm not.
We'll be done.
You have a med day.
Fantastic. Just wanted to give a heads up. It's nice to meet all of you.
It's nice to meet you. Welcome,
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. You new to the town?
Yes.
Okay. So, so congratulations on your position.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will try not to work you too hard. And don't listen too much to what Arden tells you.
She's leaving.
All right, so let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Barnstable Housing Committee. This is Tuesday, June 22nd, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, subsection 20. I must state or ask whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Hearing none, which is fine, we'll proceed. We'll begin with comments from the public. And Arden, does this consist of
I think,
comments?
yes, I think it does.
Well, Arden has just handed us
Yes.
an email, and why don't you take it, Arden, tell us about it, and we'll take a look
I
at it.
don't know that much about it.
Okay? So
At 6 o'clock this morning.
we just received this.
Just received this.
Does that mean we should attempt to discuss what it is, or wait till next meeting when we can review
If you
it?
want to briefly, excuse
Excuse me.
briefly read it into, some of it into the record, the main points into the record maybe, so that.
I'll be glad to do that. So this was from Michael Lombard, and it's addressed to Elizabeth Jenkins.
Thank you.
Excuse me, and Karen Herond. Thank you for accepting this email as a public comment. Like many of us, I am at work and unable to phone or Zoom my participation. I appreciate your effort to get this included in this morning's meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting to do that. Good. Housing Committee public comment, June 22, 2021. It's more important than ever that this committee's voices and perspectives be heard as action is needed now to address our housing crisis. I see the ADU ordinance on your agenda today. The Zoning and Regulatory Subcommittee unanimously recommended a 12-month rental requirement be included to specifically address the ordinance's first proposed purpose and intent, which is to, 1, increase the number of dwelling units available for year-round rental in the town while remaining within our current wastewater capacity limitations. I also saw the Planning Board revise the length of the lease in its 5/24/21 meeting to just 6 months. There was no, parenthetically, they state there was no rationale, only theoretical talk of a theoretical nurse who may come here on a temporary assignment, close paren. Many of us also noted the Planning Board's quick dismissal and no study or discussion around what other Cape Cod towns have considered and passed in their ADU ordinances. I've attached a spreadsheet compiled by a resident during the time the zoning committee was drafting Barnstable's ordinance, seemingly without data, as we see by their meeting minutes. It has been widely shared among those interested in year-round housing issues and, of course, with the town. I'm sharing with you today in case it did not make it into your meeting materials. We will all be tuned into Channel 18 when the meeting video is available to hear your thoughtful discussion on this ordinance and intent, how it aligns up with the Planning Board revisions and the current year-round housing crisis. I would also like you to help me understand how this new ordinance will affect the existing affordable ADU program, whose advocacy for those struggling to find year-round housing is needed now more than ever. I thank you for your good work. There you have it. So Arden, with you probably having the most knowledge of the subject matter here, do you want to just kick this off a little bit for us and we can talk about what is meant and how we might respond?
Sure, so the first item on the agenda is the draft accessory dwelling ordinance. So, you know, as we've talked about previously, there was a draft ordinance that was being reviewed by the subcommittee of the town council, the zoning and regulatory subcommittee of the town council. They spent probably at least a year of meetings talking about that ordinance, and then they did release a draft of that to the town council, who recommended it go to the planning board. This is the process that has to happen, and the planning board held a public hearing to discuss it. And heard public comment, and then they discussed it. The original draft that the planning board received had a requirement that any of the units that were rented, so either the main house or the accessory dwelling unit, was required to have a 12-month lease. The planning board, upon discussion, decided that the recommendation they were going to send back to town council would only require a 6-month lease for any of the units that were being rented. And so that was the planning board's recommendation to the town council. The town council will be taking this ordinance up on July 15th. So that's a second read, so they will be hearing this on July 15th and making a decision about the ordinance on July 15th.
Do you have any additional information? Because the letter that we got from Michelle says that the planning board dismissed it, you know, bing, bing, bing. Are there any good reasons to make it 6 months?
No.
They were trying, I think, I don't want to speak for them, you know, they were trying to make the availability of rental housing as flexible and as available to a wide group of people needing housing as possible.
Well, everybody has different opinions.
Everybody has different opinions.
I just wondered if you had any specific information.
Part of their discussion was around travel nurses, and with the 6-month thing, the thing is with travel nurses, they accept contracts for 13 weeks. So sometimes there's an extension, but I've never heard of a 6-month contract right off the bat. So I don't know if they didn't know that, but we also have plenty of short-term rentals.
You have to talk into the
Yeah,
microphone.
you can say it.
Sorry. But we also have plenty of short-term rentals that travel nurses can utilize. And quite frankly, Cape Cod Healthcare should be taking a more active role in these discussions, especially about their travel nurses. So maybe that's something that they can bring up in-house, but if you go on to any of the housing groups on Facebook, I have screenshots of dozens of people looking for year-round housing. People with a 3-year-old that are gonna be homeless on the first, families whose landlords are selling the property, any number of things. So the 12-month minimum, I really feel like that should be enforced.
Yeah.
Ollie agrees.
Could I ask Kate if, I know, do you have any general knowledge about this, Kate? Anything you might like to add? I know that you don't have not had enough time to have very specific comments.
I mean, we did look at the other ordinances, and that's why in our language we did, as one of the purpose and intent, discuss having year-round housing. I mean, as discussed, there are several opinions and, you know, with providing more flexibility possibly with the 6 months. But again, planning board plays an advisory recommendation, and so this will be discussed further at town council.
Okay. So this is still in process, and not, how would you wrap this
Yeah,
up?
it's still in process. Well, I'll mention that.
Excuse me, I liked what I heard her say. Cape Cod Hospital has some responsibility for trying to get rental and units. It's a major employee here in town.
For their employers, employees rather,
For
sorry.
anyone in that building that
Yes.
needs housing, rental, or ownership. There is no reason in the world how they can drain the system, or don't even consider expanding a minimal system. So that's a major, and they should be on board here at town meeting. They should send one to town council, whatever it is. I'm not that informed about all this stuff, but that triggered me, because I know they do nothing.
Arden, how would you conclude this? For now, we know it's in process.
Right, well, I think that you, as a committee, should decide if you want to communicate with the town council prior to their meeting on the 15th. I think they would be
idea.
looking to the housing committee to provide some guidance on the ADU issue,
And is that July 15th?
July 15th.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Can we draft a letter of support for the proposal as written?
I'm going to recuse myself from voting on that.
Point of clarification, when you say in support of as written, is that the year-round or the?
Right.
The year-round.
The year-round, okay. And I think that was a brilliant statement that you made to have the hospital could rent an apartment year-round to take care of people coming and going.
They could buy at least one multi-unit property and house their travel nurses. And they themselves sent out an email.
There.
All right.
I mean, you know, we've had a lot of ideas around the ADU bylaw, you know, trying to limit it, trying to expand it. You know, one ordinance isn't gonna solve the housing problem.
Right.
You know, it can't do everything.
Right.
So let's let it do what it does best.
Don, have they decided what solution we're looking for? I mean, is it temporary housing, or is it year-round
The
housing?
purpose of the ordinance
Sounds
as.
like a mishmash. We're going to the 6 months just to take
I
care
mean,
of both
so
issues.
6 months would not require somebody to only lease it for 6 months. They certainly could still lease it for 12 if they chose to. They're just not required to.
Oh, okay, so the landlord
Yeah, I mean, we're
could
not
still
saying
say
it
12
has to be a
months.
6-month lease. It's saying that, you know, it can't be less than a 6-month lease. But the purpose in the draft ordinance is to increase the supply of year-round housing.
Year-round, okay.
And not to be confused with short-term renting.
I'm not saying that word.
I'm speaking now as a counselor. I need to have the influence of this committee to show its muscle so that it helps guide the council in making this decision.
So, Arden, if we drafted a statement, meaning you, how would we be able to approve that, considering the open meeting law? Is there a process for doing
Well,
that?
if you give me the latitude to put your comments into paper form, I think that'll be fine. I mean, we have it on video, so we know what your motion and what your comments are, and then we can, and then I can just send that, I'll just put these comments into to form that can get to town
Okay.
council. I don't think you need to come together again.
Okay. So what is the input? Do you generate a statement and share it with us, and then we
No,
go back individually?
I think due to the time crunch, I think you should do that now, and
Okay.
I'll put it into writing.
We need to give you the latitude, but is it the consensus of the
And I
board
can can always
that it's
send it to,
year-round that we'd like to, okay.
speak to the,
How many of us think that year-round is appropriate? So I would say it's the consensus of the board.
And I'm, just for the record, I'm
Yes.
recusing
Yes,
myself. I'm
yes,
not
yes.
voting one way.
yes, he saw the memo.
Yes.
Okay. So Arden, do you need anything else from us?
So you support the original draft of the ADU ordinance, which requires a 12-month lease for any of the units being rented?
Yes.
And support town council
Yes.
approving this ordinance, yes. Okay, if you take a vote on that, I can then send that off to town council.
So all in favor, say aye.
Uh,
All opposed? Anybody withstanding?
Jake's
One.
confusing.
Very good. So that concludes our handling of this public comment. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, let's go to new business. We just discussed the ADU, so I don't think that we need to address anything else there. The second item is the Housing Coordinated Transition Update.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have much of an update, right? I don't think Kate can add much either. Right now, there is no
Replacement?
replacement yet. The job is posted, and they're actively seeking somebody to fill the position, but the position is not yet filled. I am available on a consultant basis to take care of emergencies and will help to transition that person when they're hired. So I will be available to do that.
So when we have needs, do we speak to Kate, and then she contracts with
I
you?
would say so, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And Kate, your contact information, I guess, what do we need to contact you? Just an email address, I guess?
Yes.
Which is?
Well, maybe I'll send it to.
Okay, send it on.
Because it's my full name.
Yeah, good. They don't make it easy here.
Okay. All right, excellent. The third item we have is the Housing First Shelter Model. Paul, tell us about it.
Thank you very much. So I did send out to yourself, David,
Yes.
and a few people. I did not send it to the committee. I figured that was more whatever you want to do with it, okay? So I did send out this video, and it's by the Massachusetts Housing Shelter Alliance. And so in Worcester and in some of our other big cities, it's inclusive of the Housing Authority. They're all working in partnership to create, and these are units that are manufactured in a factory. They come out. Now, of course, what's happened even with construction, don't listen to me now. The price of wood and lumber has gone through the ceiling, 3-4 time increase, right?
Even though the prices are coming down sharply right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Best thing I ever heard. So there's a possibility, well, in any event, it's, hopefully you get to see that. But the point is, I've been working on the shelter concept. My wife and I helped get the original NOAA shelter started. And NOAA back then stood for Night Operation and Help Shelter. And it was opened as an emergency thing. We started in the Armory, and now we're on Winter
We're in
Street.
the Armory, really?
Yeah, we did two winters in the Armory, and then we took the Winter Street. Well, there's been no major improvements made to the building. And the fact is, the people that go there, they're in dormitories. So I think the men are in two dorms, about 30, whatever it is, in each of those dorms. And then the women have, I think it's 5 rooms that are dedicated to the women, and there's 2 to a room. Very, very hard to get people who are dealing with their addictions and their mental health to go into that kind of environment and then get put out every morning
Yeah.
to say, why don't you deal with your problems? Well, it's just not stable. So what we need to do is, and we know from the social services that we've made a lot of progress with Housing First. So you get somebody who's got problems into Housing First, subsidized most of the times, or with vouchers. And then at the same time, they more surrounded with support for the working on their mental health and their addictions and those types of things. So I personally have been working with Massachusetts Military Support Foundation because we want to get the veterans off the street. And the reason we've come together is veterans that are homeless have the same problem as any other homeless person. So we see this as a joint effort. So we've been looking at properties, we've been looking at land, we've been, what buildings might be appropriate, where the location might be most appropriate. We also, from the business people's point of view, want to get the shelter out of downtown Hyannis. That's not to push them away. That's to say that they need to be dignified also, especially under the current system of being put out every single morning. So when I was sworn in, the last time I was sworn in, a wonderful business person from Wayne Kirker, I don't mind saying his name, he came up to me and he said, Paul, we have to do something about our homeless population. And so it's not dignified for them, and it's not dignified for our community, because we're not taking good care of our people. So, he said he'll put his back behind this, and he will help raise money, and he will help organize people. And so based on that, I've been working on it ever since. So we've looked at a few places, and then the next thing we realized, how we're going to pay for this.
That came second.
Well, it's always come second. Get the ball rolling, it's going down the road, somehow it's gonna pick up the momentum, right? So, but early on, what we realized was one of the best locations for doing what we wanna do is the Independence Park area. Because we're a gateway city, and because that's a zone of opportunity, and because it's also a designated environmental justice area, and because Vineyard Wind is going to go right through Independence Park and connect to the substation. I've been put with some investors who would put 15–20% down, depending what we do with this property. But the goal is to make it such a good property that it minimizes its use of energy and is net zero in its energy use. So that qualifies for housing and energy investment, so tax credits. So that was one of the reasons I zeroed in on that section. It also, as you all know, you have the big projects have gone up there. I'm not supposed to call them projects, I guess.
Developments.
Developments, thank you very, very much.
Can't use that word.
And so the other thing is, it's just ripe with tons of jobs, whether it's the supermarket or the restaurants or the manufacturing, that's all in Independence Park. So it became more and more and more an ideal target of where we want to go. So I bring it to the Housing Committee because really this is who you are. This is where you're going to shine. By saying to the town council, by saying to the town management, listen, this is what we need. What was beautiful about this video that's going around, if you don't get it, just contact me, I'll send it to you. It's an hour long, but it's just chock full of information. But they're building 18 to 25 units standalone. And it has a house manager in it, and it's attached to all the social services that are supportive of those populations. So
you've moved past just veterans?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
this is for everyone, okay? And so the dream is to make it, of course, affordable. But it's very stimulating in all of its concepts, and it has everything in it that we've all talked about. I thought of one campus, with 120 units. But maybe that's not gonna work. Maybe it has to be these 18, these 20s, 25s, whatever. So I bring it to this committee as something that I think is exciting, but again, I could use your help. Now, I make it very, very clear that the shelter is, and I just said this publicly at a Selectmen's Councilors Association meeting that represents some 90-plus elected officials. Included in there were two of our reps, Senator Moran, Rep. Diggs, and Rep. Zaras, and two commissioners were there. And I said, it is a regional problem. When we talk about the shelter, it is a regional problem, not a Barnstable town problem. But if we don't push, nothing's going to happen. And the next contract's going to come up, and the state has made it very, very clear that they want a shelter in Hyannis. We are central to, and this is where they want the contract to be.
This is DHCD said that?
Apparently, somebody way up there said, no, the shelter needs to be in Hyannis. So if we look at, I even said that beyond even just regional, I think it's tri-county. Because if we include Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, where do they send their people? Here. And who's got multi-billionaires? Certainly. Yeah, but most of them, I mean, some of the wealthiest people in the world live in those two. So it wouldn't be hard for them to drop. Going by that route, I have another small group that I've asked to do some research on what they call real estate investment trust. Real estate investment trust is a pool of money where people put their money, you know, give it, it's not going to, and I want it to be a nonprofit. And these exist and they're doing very, very well. So they put their money in and they're saying, I'm not giving you a gift of $5 million, I'm investing $5 million. What they want is the revenue from the rentals. So if we're all following this, you guys are really good with our side addition. I'm trying to keep my mind going here, but.
This is why Zoom really needs to happen.
Right, yeah, yeah.
This is why Zoom really needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's nice to be personal too, and
It-
see
it-
someone,
oh, it
to look
absolutely
at
is.
someone
Yeah.
face to face.
Yeah. And this is a good form of listening to the public because we
Yes.
are listening to the public.
So Paul, the Real Estate Investment Trust,
Oh, thank you very much. So, we're looking at that, the ones that I know are the nonprofits, they got started by major foundations, like putting $100 million aside for the nonprofit group. So, if I invested $10,000 in this personally, what I would be getting is maybe 6, 7, 8% return on my investment because as the structures get going, you're getting rent. The organization is not having to pay down a mortgage. It's like the expense of being there. So it makes a lot of sense. So we're gonna keep following that. We're following that
Yeah.
as far as we possibly can. We might work with banks, we might work with major foundations, or we may again do a hybrid. I'm really good at doing hybrids at this point. So the solution to the housing is that it's public, private, business approach to the solution.
Yeah.
Businesses need it, the hospital needs it, we need it, the workers need it, broken and desperate need it. So I wanted to introduce it to this committee.
Good.
'Cause I know you've been looking for ways to meet to what you do, and this would be something for, if you could get in to back and support this.
Okay.
It'd be most helpful.
and these things do seem very complicated, and they certainly are to some extent. But if you think about it, governments have tried every conceivable way to promote housing. So they have helped people pay their rent. They have made loans. They have made equity investments with their part ownership. This is a part ownership type investment.
That's right.
And the investment tax credit and the real estate investment trust are both investments in equity, ownership of the property, and it seems to be the most successful. I don't know that studies have been written as to why, but just helping someone pay the rent doesn't necessarily promote the development of housing. Giving someone a loan to build a property doesn't necessarily promote good properties over time. But having people use their funds to invest and own that property over time, they have a long-term invested interest, literally, and it seems to work reasonably well. So the Real Estate Investment Trust and the investment tax credit have survived and they're doing very well.
I think
Good.
the answer is it gives people dignity when you actually can put into a pot something that you have. And
Yes.
you in turn get the big D, dignity.
Good. Thanks, Paul. Excellent.
Can I just ask Paul,
Yeah.
what do you see the town's role in the shelter, moving the shelter?
Oh, thank you very much for bringing that up. I'm asking management to, for us, some kind of organization, maybe again, that a letter of support could come from this committee to our regional government, i.e. the county, to
Yes,
say,
I was
it's
going to-
yours to do.
Absolutely.
Actually, Beth, I think, was on that Zoom
Great.
that I talked at, and I said, yours to do. Now, I've been trying to help, but when I kind of not get any kind of response, I'm kind of getting this, you know, even from some social agencies who are not looking at the big picture and ending and addressing homelessness and ending homelessness has to be our goal. If we have any goal at all, it's to end the homelessness for everybody, and to have dignity for everybody. And that's what we have to go.
Thanks, Paul.
So, yes, so when, sort of follow up Arden's question, so from the town perspective, I mean, or the county would be funds? You're trying to get, we need funds or land or both?
Okay, because the last thing the town manager said to me is that the development department, they're gonna look around at what, you know, how many pieces of property we may have. That could be, bless you, that could be.
Town-owned, you mean, portions?
Town-owned, yeah, that we could go in and put 20 units.
And there are some
We know the
state-owned
county,
parcels,
and the
too.
county, we know the
Yeah.
county owns.
20 owns, yeah.
We have a list.
Yeah, so one of the places was the fire academy I was looking at, but the problem is, it could be years and figuring it out, and it is polluted, and, you know, so I identified 3 clear chances right now at Independence Park. And, so one might be ready to go when we're ready to go.
Don?
One quick question. If you put 10,000 in and you're talking about a return of 6 or 7% annually,
Yes.
who's paying that?
Oh, the income from the rental property,
Okay.
the income, now,
So it
different,
wouldn't be a shelter, this would be,
But it's two different things.
yeah,
yeah,
Two different.
this would be Housing First.
B and C, yeah.
Well, even, yeah, but the Housing First-based shelter is going to have, whether they get vouchers. Okay. The problem I have with vouchers, it gives a greedy, I'm sorry, if you're a greedy landowner and you have units and you don't care about, because you can get $1,000 for a unit that's less than the size of this room, that has not been well maintained, not well insulated, boom, boom, boom. So at least if it's organized and well cared for, then the voucher, I think, makes sense. If the voucher is just a ticket to ride and no responsibility or accountability, then I have a problem with the vouchers. But in this case, that would be the source of revenue that would then pay the dividend. Now, let's say I want my $10,000 back. The rule and the writs are very, very clear, they put it up.
Hope it's there.
Yeah. Well,
Bernie, do you have it, Bernie?
That's why,
That's Bernie Madoff, he made off with all my money.
that's why you need that 100 million or a bank right behind you, okay? So if I go in and I say, I want my 10,000, I need it next Friday, then, there's a penalty. If I wait, if it's in there for 5 years, there's no penalty, okay? I get my full 10,000 back. But each writ is made up different. If you want it back in 1 year or 6, you want out for any reason, then there's a penalty. It might be, I don't know,
Yeah.
5%.
I mean, REITs have been around since, what, the 80s? It was part of a tax.
Right, yes, that's right.
What kind of organization usually would start a real estate investment trust? Who would get that going and off the ground?
Yeah, so real estate companies. So the idea was that anybody can invest in stocks and bonds, but if you try to invest in real estate as just say a homeowner or just an individual investor, how would you invest in real estate? I mean, you're not going to go down and develop you're not going to develop a property somewhere. So this allows any one of us that has $100 could buy into a REIT, and it's a way that anybody can invest in real estate. And when you invest, you want to be diversified. So you have some stocks, you have some bonds, and you have some real estate and other things.
And
Good, Paul.
What the government does is it says, the structure of the writ is that at least 90% of the money that comes in has to go out to the investor.
Yes,
All right, so there's nobody getting rich up the top.
right. It's very regulated.
Right. We just need somebody.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
To
Yeah.
decide that
Yeah.
this is a
So
great
what
location to.
you would propose is to create a group, a real estate investment group to fund the shelter, or this is just 2 totally separate items?
It could fund the shelter, again, because we're looking at a unified front here. So we're looking at Chapa, and we're looking at mass housing development, and we're looking at any group that comes in with us. And again, looking at as much as possible, public, private, business, investors.
Yes.
Working together to get the job
So
done.
it could be both.
So it could be both. So, I mean, is there a feeling that the shelter should be county, state, or town-owned, or no, we want to keep it privatized?
Oh, it could be anything.
Not town.
Not town.
As long as you have it.
Well,
I mean, there's no capacity here to own
a
a
rate allows it to be privatized, so
Yeah.
that, I guess if they fit together, that's one way.
It'd be hard to fit
It would
them
be
together.
private.
But, I mean, to really solve the homelessness problem, I think that the state or the county has to step up and take ownership.
Like, they might provide the land. I mean, we're always looking at our options.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, why not governments be investors as opposed to, so they've contributed capital or some way, added funds, but they don't necessarily need to own and operate.
And CPA funds are available for that, right? They would be, most likely.
Again, under the hybrid model, it would
Likely,
be.
we'd have to look at the details.
Because all of our surrounding
CDBG.
communities are participating in CPA at this point, right?
Right, I mean, it's.
So we could pull funds from everywhere.
For sure, as the Forward model, which is the house for autistic adults, they got CPA funds from multiple communities. The Veterans House in Dennis got CPA money from multiple communities. So yes, CPAs can contribute regionally.
And that's a good model, just that,
Yeah.
I mean, the people who are there, whether it's an association or organization or the department, some department of health or something that's providing them the individual care there. Creates the, kind of the rental, if you will, which can create the benefit to the real estate investors. So this is only at the beginning, and we can all have a lot of input in making it go. The thing is to not get ourselves discouraged or to get lost in the weeds.
Yep.
Because that's often what happens.
Yes.
So on my way up here, I've always been an acronym guy, so HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and I'm driving up here and I say, oh, Barnstable United Development, I can understand that. And so, this bud's for you.
All right, good. We have a lot of agenda left. Let's keep moving.
Let's go.
The tiny house discussion.
Yes, so Megan asked to put this on the agenda.
Megan,
To talk about possibility.
tell us about the
of-
tiny house.
So,
Can you use the mic, please, just so everybody can hear on TV?
as best I can.
This is not going to be easy.
It's not gonna be easy. Ollie?
Can your son present this?
Anybody.
Yes, please.
Okay, but you have to bring him back.
Not necessarily.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Let's see where we can go from.
If you need help,
That
just
was easy.
scream.
All right, Kathleen.
So I'm really looking forward to Zoom. But Cape Cod actually already has tiny houses. We have little small cottage communities, and we have tiny homes that just arrived on Cape Cod in Falmouth in that glamping campground. So they have a combination of trailers and actual tiny homes on that property, but they are rented out on a weekly basis.
Megan, could I ask, or maybe everyone, what prevents a tiny home from being built in Barnstable?
It's a great question.
Okay,
Zoning,
okay. And what element of the zoning stops it?
the size and structure.
So does a dwelling actually have to be so many square feet?
Tiny homes are, by definition, 400 square feet or smaller.
Okay. And do they have foundations typically?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There's tiny homes on wheels, and then there's tiny homes on slab or concrete foundations.
So if you built a tiny home with a foundation, do you get tripped up by zoning, or is it only when they are on wheels? Because then you're talking mobile homes.
So-
Right now, it's both.
Yeah, so there's probably two issues. There's building code issues
Yep.
as to how tiny it's allowed to be.
But is there a square foot limit,
I don't know.
lower
I don't
limit?
know that. I don't know
That's
the
a
answer.
state minimum standards
Yeah.
limit, I think, that would trigger there. But if the state's recognizing it in other places, I assume there's some sort of exception that exists.
Okay, good.
Yes, there is, and it's called Appendix Q. And it was adopted in Massachusetts, and it was supposed to go into effect of January of 2020. But it actually went into effect in January of 2021 this year.
So it's kind of a waiver for tiny homes?
It It is, and it's up to municipalities to adopt it
Okay.
into their zoning. So
Good.
we have the outline.
Yep.
And we have the power. So we could get this done. My question, 400 square feet is small. So it fits a small group of people. It's just one more kind of link in a chain of housing solutions. My question, and this would probably have to go up to the state at some point, is why can't we make tiny homes 400 to 800 square feet? So if you look up in Dennis off Old Wharf Road, they have the cottage community there. And they're very small homes and they're 3 seasons. So my question is, why are they only 3 seasons when they are structurally able to support all 4? And why can't we build more like that throughout the Cape?
Yeah.
So I spoke to David Anthony in the town asking about the Marston's Mill School. And I see that in 2016, this was also a discussion about what to do with that property. So the demolition of the Marston's Mill School has been funded, and that's going to happen. And then it's my impression that there will be an RFP going out like there was before, a request for proposals for use of the site. I would like to use that site for a tiny home community.
So, Megan, could I ask a question? One of the things we always encounter in housing is that zoning votes require 2/3. Has Governor Baker's
Yes.
change been implemented?
Yes.
And do we have to do anything, or is it now, is it 50% plus 1 vote kind of majority?
It's still 2/3.
Zoning is still 2/3. No, I think
We'll figure that
I
out.
don't wanna answer, but yes.
The problem is, with
the
2/3
governor-
vote, you can't pass anything, because you can always get people to turn out and prevent the 2/3 from happening.
But we can always get people to turn in. So what we've
Yes.
also shown, especially through Zoom, is that civic engagement is quite high. And with the housing crisis, we've also seen people show up and say, we need year-round housing. So I'm not going to say it's a problem because these people will fight it, and I'm very familiar with the people who are going to fight it. But I am going to say that regardless of what happens, I will do my level best to get every single voter in support of housing to any single initiative we have.
Okay.
So that isn't going to stop me. What I think we should do is we should have a serious discussion about this and look to planning and development about adopting Appendix Q within the town of Barnstable and maybe even countywide, because there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room here.
So, just devil's advocate question, why not multifamily housing as opposed to tiny homes? Because you could make apartments very small, and then you do get economies of scale because you have one heating system, one plumbing system. Is there like a simple answer to that, or is it always case by case?
I'm not opposed to multifamily housing. If that's, I'm really not opposed to any housing. If
Because
we
the
can
more
do it-
housing, the better.
Right.
Okay.
The-
Concept.
Should would you like to have a discussion, a more detailed discussion then about this at our next meeting? Or, I mean, how would we pursue learning more about this and trying to take an action?
So there's a couple people at the state level that I'm trying to get in touch with who were a part of the campaign to get Appendix Q passed that I'm trying to get in touch with.
Could you get one of them to speak here, maybe?
I am hoping. And
Let's
we
do
also
that.
have a tiny house
they don't
builder on Cape.
Should you talk to Arden about somebody coming to speak at one of our meetings to educate us about us?
Yeah, we can coordinate.
Why don't we do that?
I think they'd be a good opportunity for accessory dwelling units.
There's one other aspect of this that I wanted to bring up.
Yep.
So right now, affordable housing is out of the question for people who aren't income qualified for it. And right now, with the average housing price of 600,000 plus, those same people aren't really qualified to buy. And you're
Right.
seeing people who have income levels of 200,000 or above having difficulty buying a home. So what tiny homes do is they allow for, at market rate, is they allow for people who are excluded from affordable homes and purchasing a home to purchase that home and either gain that small amount of equity or sell it later
Sure.
to move into a single home, allowing them to save.
Yeah, it's an entry level.
Right.
It's a cost and speed thing too. The time to create something like this is relatively quick. They can show up basically on a truck here.
Yep.
And
Be plopped down.
plopped down.
Yeah.
You know,
And while I know there are some people in Falmouth that are looking at the tiny homes on wheels concept more as the ADU concept.
Yep.
If we had a community, then the The foundation issue would be less of an issue if there's more of them in one area.
Good point.
So if we have an actual community, I mean,
Yes.
it could be nauseatingly Cape Cod beautiful, like walkways, lightways, gardens, right in Marston's Mills.
Dry shingles,
Perfect.
white trim.
Everything.
With no boxes.
Absolutely.
I can see it now.
So there's two issues. There's the structure, the size of the house.
Yeah.
And then there's zoning, meaning that a parcel of land, a parcel that's zoned for single family only allows a single family unit, one unit. They don't care how big it is or well, they care how big it is. They don't care how small it is, but you can only have one.
Yes.
So you're now only allowed one tiny house on 2 acres. You know, if you go out and buy a parcel of land, you can only
Right.
have one on 2 acres,
Which is a non-starter.
which is a non-starter. So the zoning issue has to be resolved
Yep.
so that it's not single-family zoning. Like, everybody's concern is wastewater. Well, why not have 4 one-bedroom tiny homes as opposed to one large 4-bedroom home?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same amount of wastewater. So the
Kind of freestanding
zoning
multifamily.
needs to accommodate, in this case of Marston's Mills, the town owns that parcel, so, you know, the sky's the limit as to what can happen there.
So let's get some people in with some expertise
There.
so we can learn more about it.
Excellent, I will do
Excellent.
that.
Thanks, Megan. Our next item is communication with town council, and we've had very little, but we're about to have some because we're going to ADU. Is there anything else we'd add to that? No? Fine.
I don't think so.
Next item is approval.
Actually, I'll tell you, there's
Yes.
something upcoming. The Hyannis zoning will be, so we've been working for a couple of years on changing, on amending the zoning in a portion of downtown Hyannis to reflect a form-based code type of zoning. I think we've talked about it here before, so that the zoning would dictate the structure of the unit, but not the use. So, you know, we're hoping that will incentivize housing because it won't limit how many units could be in that building as long
Got
as
it.
it meets the design standards and the function standards. So that information, that draft zoning is gonna go, live onto the town's website on June 28th.
Yes.
June 28th.
So on Monday, June 28th, and we will be sending out a zoning email, a press release.
Good.
And
That will
communicate
probably be the next
strongly.
issue that that this committee can, you know, can look at and decide whether they want to communicate with town council about
Good,
that.
thank you.
And that'll be up for about a month, and there's a forum to provide public comment.
Got it,
So we'll have
excellent.
the month of public comment, and just while I have the mic, I just want to clarify that July 15th, the ADU meeting will be via Zoom. So there's a legal ad going out this week, the zoning email, we're communicating that as strongly as possible. It was July 1st, but with the governor signing the bill to allow us to extend remote meetings, we have switched ADUs to July 15th via Zoom.
Okay. Good. Next topic, approval of minutes. We don't have minutes, do we? Because we were unable to have a session and we'd approved minutes before.
May I just make a comment on that?
Yes.
I believe that the reason that the 2 previous meetings were canceled in quick order was something about the posting.
Yeah,
Yes.
there were Zoom link problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I talked to our administrator this morning. Has it normally been posted or handled, the meetings, through Development Department? It's, our administrator from the council is willing to assist, Cindy is willing to assist if there's anything you want her to do.
Sure, yeah, I think now that I think we're good, because
Think you're good?
sometimes too many cooks spoil the broth.
Okay.
Nobody knows who did what, and then a piece goes missing, so.
And we're going to stay live
Well,
going forward?
that's a decision that you need to talk about.
So that's our next topic,
at the
next meeting.
zoning.
I think it would make sense to just go back to where we were, which is third Tuesdays every month, live. Anybody think we should do something different? I don't think we need a vote.
Are you saying third or second?
I thought it was the third Tuesday of every month, 8:30.
The reason that Glenn,
This is the 4th, I think.
It's an oddball month.
We're off.
oh, that's
We
what
have
it was.
5.
That's why he couldn't be here, because
Yes,
he already
yes,
had
we're,
meeting plans.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're off 1 week, and
Okay.
there's 5 Tuesdays.
We tried to go to the 15th, but it didn't work.
Right, it was 2.
All right, so Arden, would you or take any action necessary to see that we're scheduled for, from now on, we just go forward, third Tuesday of every month, 8:30 here?
Are we doing the Zoom thing?
Live, he wants to go live.
I want to go.
So So let me ask you this, if somebody wanted to Zoom, can we put a screen up somewhere, or is that impossible?
That's under discussion right now. Right now, the town does not feel they have the capacity to hybrid
Yeah.
hybrid a meeting.
So it just, you know, I think it'd be awfully nice to go live, because you just miss so much with Zoom. I know it's difficult for you, Megan. We'll work with your son. How about that?
I won't always
Yeah.
have him, but I work overnights. So if I'm falling asleep towards the end of the meeting, just nudge me a little.
Okay, good.
That's why we need national childcare. There you go.
I might bring up
Right in the
council, because
building here,
we're
there should be
debating this at
childcare.
council, how to do it also. And another simple way is to have a phone, a three-way conversation, but that could get lengthy. This is clear.
Yeah.
It's expressed.
Yeah.
Nobody's nervous. It's terrific.
I
So-
mean, you could always call in. Is that allowed under the open meeting law? I believe it is. Megan could call in.
Not currently, we're not set up for it.
Well, if you put a cell phone on the desk, go ahead.
Right now, we don't have a hybrid
Okay.
as an opportunity. I will throw out there that we are coordinating thoroughly with legal right now. As discussed, the governor
Okay.
did sign the bill that would allow more remote, but we're trying to working with legal to provide the communication, and it may be up to the board chair to decide the format of the meeting, whether
Okay.
it's via Zoom or in person.
it's-
However, not for the record, I'm getting full communications from legal, hopefully today, to send out to all boards and committees. So I
Okay.
just want to throw that out, but please don't take that word, because I would like to
Okay.
have legal's word.
I mean, it's only been a week since the,
Yep.
governor.
So.
Yeah, we should
so
have
we're-
something today.
We're going live, and we'll work with you, Megan, to see what we can come up with.
I appreciate that.
Good. Items not reasonably anticipated 40 hours in advance. By the way, do we
Ask
do?
a few quick questions.
Yes.
One, is the homelessness committee disband, or does it still exist?
My understanding, it was going to be sunset July 1st.
So does that sort of responsibility fall onto this committee to sort of advocate for homelessness prevention and homelessness housing and?
I think this plays an important role. I happen to be liaison to three very important committees. This committee, the Disability Committee, and the Human Services Committee. And I think that housing falls squarely on all three
We're
of
all
those.
connected.
And so that's where I'm pushing for.
That's an excellent question. They disbanded a committee, but the tasks still remain.
Yeah.
Well, it was,
Who's going to be doing them?
under my administration, it was to, we changed it from the homelessness committee that just was kind of focused, really, the intent was to make sure that no more shelters or, that was how they saw it, okay? That's not how I saw it. I changed it to the committee to address homelessness. And, there came the Housing First Campus concept under Councilor Britt Biedenbender. She wanted the different approach. And, but then when she left, I'm not sure what was happening, and so I put a bug in people's ear, and I said, why doesn't it go away?
Okay.
And then the other thing was, I think we need to sort of coordinate, or at least receive the report from the Affordable Housing Trust that they've presented or will give to CPC. But I think we should have some, because from how I understand it, the Affordable Housing Trust is really, they're not the Affordable Housing Committee. They are the trust that's
Right.
distributing funds.
Right.
So we really are the Affordable Housing Committee as well. So we need to have a little bit of synergy between the two.
Connected.
What they're doing and what, and I think maybe we should be helping create some recommendations for them of how they spend money or should be spending money, or ways to disperse money, and also how to help them raise money too.
Because we're advisors.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's an excellent.
So what's the action there? What do we-
How the trust how the two groups are going to communicate.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if we could at least get, in the short term, get distributed I think they're presenting, or maybe they presented last night to CPC, their report.
Might have been.
But if we could at least see, what I think it was supposed to outline what they spent and what they are proposing and
Right.
sort of.
So the trust has a meeting on Friday that I'll be attending, and Kate will be attending, so I will bring that up to them. I'm sure it's a public record. I don't know that I need to ask
Yeah,
them permission to share it, but I will let them know that.
What time
that
is the
we wanna
meeting, by the
share
way?
it. It is
Do you know
at
off the-
9 o'clock, and it's a public meeting.
Here?
So, no, on Zoom.
Okay.
on Zoom.
So any of us could attend if we wanted to. Maybe I'll try to attend.
But you can definitely attend, you
Yeah.
can
Are-
Zoom in.
Did we ever resolve whether or not the CPC was, $10 million one year and zero the next? Or did we get some, I think we talked about like a 1 or 2% that would go to CPC.
Yeah, I mean,
every year
there's a
for
set
housing.
aside.
So there's a minimum set aside
There
for
is.
10%,
housing
right?
of 10%.
Yeah, so it has to
go
be there,
housing.
has to be spent.
Often, sometimes, they don't spend that in a year. You know,
Right.
they
So it piles
don't
up.
necessarily get applications. But the minimum does need to
But the
be,
funding stays there.
the funding stays
Yes.
there.
Next year, they could be.
Yes.
10% stays there,
10%.
yes, the 10%
So it builds
stays
up.
there, so it could build up.
So how much is there now?
I don't know how much is available.
But they have a monthly report.
So
We could just
they-
look at that.
2 years ago, CPC awarded the Affordable Housing Trust $2.5 million. And they.
And that was the accumulated 10%.
And some
And
of
some,
the, and some
okay.
of the remaining 70. And they have submitted, probably last night, the Affordable Housing Trust submitted to CPC a letter of intent for an additional $2.5 million.
Okay.
Because the trust has awarded 147, about 1.8 million of that 2.5 already, so they were concerned that they didn't have a big chunk of funds left to award a bigger project, so they felt ready to ask for more. So
Got it.
that will come to CPC as well. So it is a really good time to be communicating, because the trust might need the support of this committee in their request for additional funds.
And I think
Good.
also we should be looped in on town-owned land projects. Like, I know that David Anthony presents to the Affordable Housing Trust a lot on that and speaks to it, but it'd also be, I think, maybe to have him come into one of these meetings at some point and give us an update on town-owned land disposition or repurposing or things like that.
Good idea.
It's relevant to, it seems like the direction for some of that land is to try to create housing.
Okay. That concludes the topics for today's meeting.
Could I just? put
Yes.
One more item not expected here. Has this committee weighed in? It's really not, and Arden and Kate can correct me and stop me quickly if you want. The planned project, the proposed project for the golf course at the west end, 312 units of housing on the golf course. And by right, the owner has a right to the land, and they have a right, the company that wants to do it. Have we weighed in on our thoughts of that?
What you doing?
And the reason I bring it up personally as a town councilor, I just want you for 1 second to think about what Boston would be like without the Boston Commons. Or what would New York be like without Grand Central?
Sure.
Or without,
Central
Central. What would it look like? How does it feel? This is really the last big piece of land for the village of Hyannis. And so I know that conservation groups and citizens groups are coming together to try to be part of that. Is this something that we?
So I don't think that the application is even before the town yet at this point. It's being reviewed by the Cape Cod Commission. So right now, there's no action at the town level yet, so when it does come.
But Paul, we will address it.
Right.
Yes.
I would second what Arden just said, and I believe they haven't even submitted to the Cape Cod Commission yet. So we'll keep everyone updated, but it's not quite in our hands just yet.
And if the commission, can you help me with this? If the commission approves that plan, does the town have any authority? I mean, it's like smoke in the air if we have no authority and it's.
I know.
It's a go.
It's a complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that, they need local approval as well.
They need local approval.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, good.
All right, everyone, that concludes our meeting of June 22nd. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in 4 weeks.
Yeah, you said third Tuesday, but did you mean starting starting in July, yes? Starting in July.
Starting in July, so the third Tuesday of every month at 8:30 in the morning.
And
Back to our
so
schedule.
far for the agenda, trust communication process, the trust report to the CPC. It'll probably be past the 15th of
What you doing,
July,
Bobby?
so. a report on the results of the ADU.
Yeah, if there's something we can do in the meantime that you think we take action, just send me a note.
I think we could,
Megan has any,
we
you
could
know-
discuss transfer tax too to support affordable housing.
Good.
I know that has to go to state level, but.
Right,
we
that's
could-
fine.
And off the record, may I ask, Arden, how much longer are you gonna be with us?
I am gonna be here until next Wednesday.
Kate, you're gonna take over? Or whatever, assign somebody from your department will take over.
Somebody, so, I mean, I had this conversation with Elizabeth in preparation for this meeting. Yes, if there is no staff person
Here,
hired by,
over here.
in 4 weeks, somebody from the Planning and Development Department will staff this meeting.
Can we take this time to thank you
Here.
for all the time and all the effort that you have put in?
Good reminder, Paul, thank you.
Yes, I potentially will be popping my head in here and there. I've agreed to provide.
You've been terrific to
some
work with, by the
assistance.
way, tremendously helpful.
Yes, and you're fond of
There's a
knowledge
lot
and
of
information, so
card
I'm
table.
happy to hear that, you know, might pop in now and then, or, you know, still be around town is important to us.
Yes, yes.
How many accessory affordable apartments were created under your time here?
Oh my God. Well, I only had to participate in that program for 5 years. We used to have a full-time staff person. I think maybe that's what, off the record, burnt me out of this job was was administering that program, literally, you know,
Okay,
because
we've
when I started
adjourned.
here,
Have they
there was a
shut off
full-time person
the
administering
broadcast?
that program, and